Hello there, hi. Welcome to Butterfly Effect, a podcast all about interviewing people. I'm your host, Tristan Ettleman. Before we get to the interviewing part, I just want to say something about a really great movie that I saw recently. Last week, as it was kind of towards its tail end, I went and saw Everybody Wants Some, the new Linklater movie, Richard Linklater movie that it's kind of a spiritual sequel to Dazed and Confused. Dazed and Confused is like 70s in high school. Everybody Wants Some it's 1980, so it's still very 70s in some regards. But in college, and different characters and everything, of course, because Dazed and Confused was 23 years ago. But anyways, Everybody Wants Some is a fantastic fucking movie. It's my movie of the year so far. No one can do a rambly, like slice of life, beautiful movie like Linklater can. I mean, Boyhood, Dazed and Confused, and Everybody Wants Some, are just what come to my head right now. But I'm sure he's done some other instances of that. But I mean, those movies are amazing, and nothing really happens in them. But they're still so beautiful in their depiction of life. And Everybody Wants Some depicts a very specific life of this college team, college baseball team, partying all the time. But initially it was a little testosterone heavy, but then I think it circles around to something that's a little more universal. The characters become likable. Acting's good. The soundtrack's amazing. Feels like you're there in that time. And so it was just a fantastic film. I wish I saw it literally on the last day. It was in my the theater I go to. Because I just wanted to see it. I'm so glad I caught it, and if there's a way you can watch it, whether it be in theaters or when it comes out via streaming services and Blu-ray and what have you later, you should watch it. You owe it to yourself. I would love to talk to anyone that worked on that movie. I've been trying, but let people know. I want to talk to people from Everybody Wants Some. Man, yeah, it was such a good movie. Very, very good. I thought I should mention it. Anyways, today on the show we have David Beeler, actor, producer, all-around creative, talented guy. David is a working actor in L.A., and he was a friend. He's a friend of my stepfather's. He grew up with him, and seemed like his story seemed like a cool one, so we got in touch, and we talked. Really cool. We got really deep about show business and failures and successes, and looking forward to the next big thing. It was a really pleasant conversation, and I was glad I talked to David. So here's my conversation with David. I'll see you on the other side. So what have you been up to lately? What's in the works?
Gosh, as recently as about 4 minutes ago, I sent over a treatment for a new television sketch show.
Wow.
With a couple of writers who I've worked with that I'm excited about. A director I worked with in February, in a passing conversation, said, "Oh, I like that idea," and it was something years ago. It was a TV show that got greenlit and then fell through the cracks in the Vivendi sale when these corporate megas take over each other, and so it all looked like everything was going to go forward on Friday, and by Monday, the VP who was our sort of champion for this project was like, "I may not be here by Wednesday," and sure enough, he was not. Our project just went into the ether in that moment. So
right.
Anyway, I mentioned, just how difficult it is to get projects up and, get them happening. The director I'd worked with, and she was like, "I like that idea." Well, roll forward about a month later, turns out she and her husband are neighbors of mine, so they were over for dinner, just, "Hey." And she goes, "I want to talk to you about that idea." And I didn't even know what she was talking about. I was like, so I was like, "Oh, yeah. Oh, well, okay. If that's really of interest to you, okay. I'll reach out to some people and we'll see if we can do something." So I reached out to the two friends of mine who are writers, really very funny and talented writers, and they really got behind the idea, and so we're putting this treatment out today. But the guy that would be our head writer, whose name is John Colton Berry, he worked on Phineas and Ferb. He's head writer for Be Cool Scooby-Doo right now.
Huh.
So he's over at Warner Brothers, up to his eyeballs in meetings and deadlines, and
Right.
so waiting for him to kind of give a sign off so we can send this over to the director to give it to this actor that she would like to be in it, that she thinks will help get it made. So we'll see what happens. You know, it's spaghetti you throw. And
yeah, well, and you said it's sketch?
Yeah, it'd be a sketch comedy show.
That's TV needs more of that right now, I think.
Well, I would like to think so, because I enjoy that. I did sketch with my buddy Tom Conkle, who would be writers on this for many years, and you know, it's great fun to do. And you know, I have a soft spot in my heart for sketch, so we'll see. It's one of these things where I thought, okay, don't know if that's going to happen, and then suddenly this has come up on the dashboard as something that may happen, you know. So I think if you're a creative person pursuing a career in the arts or entertainment, you know, there's a certain amount of your hope springs eternal. You can't do it. And it's that thing that Picasso said, you have to stay childlike in your enthusiasm. But as an acting coach of mine said, you have to have, it's a child's game with adult rules. Yeah. So you can't get too jaded as you go along, but at the same time, you know, I'd love it if this would work. It'd be really super cool. And I'm like, oh, well, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, you have to be really passionate about it, but also somewhat detached, just so you don't go insane when things don't work out.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think people who are outside of it realize the paradoxes of that, where you have to organize your entire life to chase down these creative endeavors that are near and dear to your heart, remain passionate about it, but at the same time let go of it at any moment and not care, or you're too attached, which tends to push the result away from you.
Yeah.
It's a weird...
Yeah, it's a weird business that combines those two elements. But, well, so you're from Kerrville, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I was raised, which makes me a native Kervert.
Well, yeah, I know some stories about Kerrville, of course, from Curtis. But how was it growing up in Kerrville for you? Are you older than Curtis or younger?
I don't know.
He's 50.
Then I'm a little bit younger.
Okay,
but not by much.
So I mean, what was going on in Kerrville at the time? You're growing up?
Well, it's a great place to call home. It really is. It's, you know, it's a small town of about 20,000 people.
Right.
So it's small enough to allow a little anonymity. Not everybody knew your business, but it's still everything that a small town kind of wants to be. So, you know, it was kind of cool. I grew up on the edge of suburbia. Literally just outside of Kerrville in a little development. So we were in a suburban tract house, if you will, but literally across the street from our house was a field with horses or cows, depending on what time of the year it was. Across the street on the other side was another field. It was just full of grass and stuff. And then just down the road was the river, and we'd go down to the river and swim and fish and play. And, you know, so it was sort of a sort of Tom Sawyer, Huck Finn life, but also, you know, being in sort of suburbia and, you know, all that.
Yeah.
So in many respects, it was fantastic. You know, looking back, given where I wanted to go and the things that became my careers, you know, I think had I had a little more of an outward-looking perspective, that may have helped, but, you know, who knows? Because I certainly got that by the time I was in high school, but I had a kind of, you know, a great upbringing. It was real simple, not unfettered, I suppose is a good way to put it.
Yeah. Well, what do most people do in Kerrville? Like, what's the like, not like in terms of recreation or anything, but like, is there like a town industry or anything like that?
Oh, that. It seems to be ranching and retirement.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
all-
So
all-
that would lead to the thing that there's not much to do in Kerrville
there's a lot of
recreationally.
but a lot of people come there to retire, and then there's a lot of industry that supports that. Now, I'm sure the Chamber of Commerce would be mortified for me to say so,
Sure.
but no, there's not any kind of industry per se.
Okay.
It's a very pretty place, kind of rolling hills. If you've been up around like Paso Robles,
Mm-hmm.
kind of has a similar vibe to that part of
Sure.
California. Kind of rolling hills, a little drier, but
Mm-hmm.
but what was interesting about Kerrville, and still is it's for a small town, it's a hotbed of arts. What?
Okay, that was my next question. Yeah.
Yeah, which is there's a national museum there. The Cowboy Artists Hall of Fame Museum is in Kerrville, and it's a nationally recognized museum.
Mm-hmm.
There's the Arts Foundation that I got involved with that runs a theater. There's several theaters in town now. There was only kind of the one when I was growing up.
Sure.
But now it supports like 2 or 3 additional small theaters, as well as the Hill Country Arts Foundation, which does plays year-round, as well as big musicals in the summer and their outdoor amphitheater. There's a ton of artists who live in and around the area. And there's a lot of galleries. So
Wow.
it's a strange thing because it's this sort of little. Oh, there's the Texas Arts and Crafts Fair, the Kerrville Music Festival, which is an international music festival.
Mm.
I tell people when I lived in England, I'd mention Kerrville. I go, oh yeah, I was there for the music festival.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, so it's strange in that there's this concentration of arts there, but it's also incredibly conservative and
Yeah.
Politically, it's very, very right.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting mix of arts and what you would assume being more liberal and this sort of real conservative perspective that is this small town.
Right.
Yeah,
look, I've talked to people. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, sorry, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say I've talked to people that live in small towns, and it's either there was something they discovered in terms of arts, or there was none at all, and they wanted to get out and find it. But it sounds like you had it there in some regard.
I did, yeah. When I was, I got into acting when I was a kid. I guess it really started when I was like in first grade. We had moved to Fort Belvoir, Virginia, just outside of D.C. because my dad was in the Army.
Mm.
Then we moved back to Kerrville when I was in first grade, and I remember the first week or so of school I was about 5 weeks late starting because we were traveling back to Kerrville and moving and all that stuff. So everybody was ahead of me. They knew what they were doing. They'd settled into being in school, and I didn't know anybody, and I didn't know what they were doing. I felt lost. And I remember making a joke, and the kid behind me laughed, and the kid next to me laughed, and they both looked at me, and smiled, and were laughing at what I said. And I thought, that's it. If I can make them laugh, they'll like me.
Yeah.
I can fit in. So I became this sort of a little bit of a class clown, but I was also a good student. So the teachers never gave me much grief because I did well in school, but was always the kid making jokes and cracking people up. But around 4th grade, I guess, my mother was deep into crafts, had all this craft stuff laying around, and I made this big mustache out of this black fake fur she had for something.
Sure.
So I made this big old mustache, and I taped it to my lip, and then I got some old 6-shooter cowboy guns out of the old toy box, and I stuck those in my lime green pajamas, and I got my stepfather's cowboy hat that kind of pushed my ears down, and his aviator sunglasses, and I kind of John Wayne-like strode into the bed where my mom and stepfather were, and they were laying there on the bed, and they looked at me and they kind of giggled, and I pulled the guns and pointed them at them. I said, "Freeze, or I'll blow your balls off." And they thought that was just hysterical. They just
it's pretty funny.
do some more. And I was like, oh, well, no, I'm on the spot. So I kept improvising, not knowing that that's what it was called, and making up stuff. And they kept laughing. And so the next night they were like, do some more. So I started inventing these characters, and then when they would have people come over to play cards or for dinner, I'd get my box of costumes, and I'd go to the bathroom, and I'd dress up as different characters and come out and improvise and interact with our guests. And that was kind of the beginning of my acting.
Wow.
Doing everything from a old lady to Hitler to Elvis Presley to a mime or a hippie, the professor, all these different characters. It's so odd that here I am pitching a sketch show all these years later, still doing the same stuff.
Yeah.
But because I was interested in that, my mother, when I was 12, said, well, maybe you should audition for a play out at the Point Theater. And I went and auditioned and got cast in this show. It was an original musical called The Texas Hill Country, which was about the boyhood life of Lyndon Baines Johnson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
was he Texan?
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, he was from a neighboring town of ours.
Oh, okay.
Johnson City. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
And
how'd that play?
Well, I had no point of reference.
Sure.
I had no idea. I was Gus the German boy, and
was it a kid performance, or were you just in it as a kid?
I was just in it as a kid. I mean, it was about
okay.
Lyndon Baines Johnson and his boyhood, so it was mostly about.
Sure, I can't imagine it would be like a full-on student or like a child production, but
no, it was a mix.
Sure, okay.
But my dog was in it as well, and he had a better part. He got in the local paper, and I didn't. So obviously his press agent was doing better. But that was my first thing, and then I liked it. And the guy who was directing the show was very complimentary and thought I did well. And a few years later, he actually offered me a job doing sort of like summer stock. I worked as a technician during the day building the scenery, and then at night I would be in the shows. And that was a huge opportunity, a great learning experience. And, just was living out of the theater all summer, pretty much. For several summers I did that. And did a lot of shows and met a lot of people. And so by like the time high school rolled around, you're like, what do people do in Kerrville? I hung out with people that were much older than me, and I had no interest in like scoring beer and drinking it on the top of a hill.
Sure.
I was interested in like doing things, and I also at the same time became interested in photography, and luckily got a job at the end of that first summer when I was a technical assistant in the local camera store. So I would work in the summer during the day and then work at night, either doing the shows or working at the camera store, and I kept that job through high school. And by the time I was 17, I was running their professional black and white lab, and on a really steep curve, learning with photographers, assisting them, working with the managers at the store. So, the things I really was passionate about found me in Kerrville, believe it or not.
Yeah. Well, all these creative pursuits, were your parents supportive of them, or were you even thinking that this was going to be like a career at some point, or was it just something that was fun?
Well,
in the moment,
it was fun, but kind of lucky for me, my mother's parents, especially her dad. My grandfather, her father was a jazz drummer, and although music was always his passion, when he had a family and he had a huge orchestra in Miami apparently after the war, but when they left and had to move away from there with family and stuff, I think he was bothered because he always had other jobs that he did because he couldn't support himself in Kerrville, Texas, playing jazz.
Right.
But he told my mother, and she wanted to either work with horses in the circus or be a policewoman. and at that time, neither one of these were viable options for a woman.
Right.
Sad to say.
Yeah.
So he's like, no, you have to get a degree. He's like, no, you have to get a business. It's like a vocational school. She went to secondary school. You have to have something that you can fall back on. If you do that, then you can go off and do something stupid. So he forced her to go to business college, and that's when she met my dad, and she got married. And I think she always, regretted not following her dreams. So she was very adamant that my brother and I follow what we were interested in.
That's great though
So,
that
yeah.
you had that. Because with creative, artistic people, you'll hear the story of like my parents, my family really either didn't get it or were just kind of like, you shouldn't do that. Get it, get a business degree and make the money, the easy money. But it's good that you had that influence there as well.
Yeah, I was really lucky because she was always supportive of what I did. But at the same time, very hands off. I mean, she was not at all a stage mother. She was never promoting me or pushing me. She would take me to rehearsals and drop me off. She'd come see the show once. And I'd be like, "You're going to come back and see it again?" She goes, "Well, I've already seen it, honey. I know how it ends." It's just, I was like,
well, it's treating you very maturely, though. Very like you're doing your thing. I appreciate it, and then that's that.
Yeah, no, she always did that too. And I remember, gosh, with some pretty heavy stuff, her just saying, "You've always had a level head on your shoulders. What do you think I should do about this?" And she was honestly asking my opinion, not patronizing me in any way. And I remember, I better come up with a good answer because she really wants to know what I think. So that got me thinking or being aware that what I thought might have some impact with somebody else.
Yeah.
And that was great. She was a super cool lady, my mom. She was really fortunate. She was a cool lady.
Well, what'd you do? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
All my friends who knew her just thought she was awesome.
She was a cool mom. Around town.
Mom.
Yeah.
Like, I could talk about sex with my mother, and it wasn't weird.
Right.
Seriously.
Right.
Like, how many people say that even as adults?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know where this is going to go out, but my wife, the idea of her talking about sex with her parents, she would find that just horrific.
The worst experience that could ever happen.
But I could with my mom. No problem.
Well, what'd you do after high school?
Well, during high school, I had done this high school summer theater workshop at the University of Texas. And so when leaving, I was going to put myself through school because I didn't have any money. And I'd gotten a scholarship through that workshop program to UT Austin. Okay. And they had a drama department, so I went there and was on a BFA program in acting. And after a couple of years, in my second year, I just got this bee in my bonnet that I needed to go study in Europe. And I thought, well, I'll do a half a year of liberal arts on the continent and a half a year studying acting in London, because that's, where you go if you're going to be an actor. New York, London, right?
Yeah.
And I wrote to these 5 schools that I found in this big book called the World Book of Schools, and had missed the deadline for all of them except one, which was the Central School of Speech and Drama. Now it's the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama.
Oh. Wow.
But back then it was a little plainer. And so I wrote to the school, and they sent back a thing saying, you can audition in New York on these days. And so I flew to New York and auditioned. And a month later, they offered me a spot. And it was in the acceptance letter that I realized that it was kind of a big deal. Up till then, I didn't realize it. Because Central and RADA kind of vie for the number 1 spot. And at the time, Laurence Olivier was the president of Central.
Wow.
So it was sort of like, wow, I'm going off to study with Laurence Olivier. That's amazing.
Pretty big, yeah.
Yeah. Vanessa Redgrave was the vice president of the school. So it was like, what? And I'm glad I didn't know when I auditioned, or I would have been...
It would have crippled you with anxiety?
I would have been nervous,
Yeah.
I was like, whatever, let's do this. So then the problem was my cost of a year of school went from like a couple of grand to like $10,000. And so I wrote a play and petitioned the theater I grew up doing plays in, the Point Theater. The Hill Country Arts Foundation, their board of directors established a scholarship and let me funnel money through that. And I wrote and produced this one-man show and sold enough tickets to pay for my first year of training.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was kind of neat in that I paid for school by doing what I was going to school to learn to do.
Right, yeah.
And to be honest with you, I learned as much trying to get to school as I actually did at school.
Yeah.
Because then during the breaks, I was busy trying to write the next show to the next year. And like in my first year during my spring break, I produced that same one-man show on the London Fringe. in order to get publicity and PR stuff to promote the next summer show back in Texas. And then I wrote an ensemble piece and did that. And the third year, I recycled the one-man show because I didn't have time because the workload at school increased a lot in the second year.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of neat. And then that's what got me writing.
Yeah, because up to then you had been doing other people's material, basically. You were acting. And
up until then I hadn't written anything. But then some subsequent stuff that I put together, we took to the Edinburgh Festival and it won some awards. And I had one show transfer into London and a producer saw the show and hired me to write, because it was a bio piece. It was based on real life. So he hired me to write a new musical that would be a bio musical. So I was going to write the book, not the music.
Right.
I have a little musical ability, but not enough. So I have enough to know I don't have enough.
Right.
And that was a cool opportunity. That show wound up not going, but it had to do with how they were selling it as a number one tour to the regional theaters before it would move into town. So it never happened, which is the nature of entertainment.
Right, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, so that was just unfortunate in a way, but it also, had it gone, I may not have left London to come back to the States and come out to LA.
Yeah, there's the butterfly effect there.
But
so what's that?
Butterfly effect. You should do a podcast.
Exactly. Well, and how was it? I mean, it sounds like acting in London is like a huge deal. Like, was there a lot of pressure there? Like, what were some of the highlights while you were there?
Well, I arrived the day I was supposed to start school because I was literally doing fundraising up to the last minute. And so what happened was I arrived and there were these 28 other actors in my year. And it was cool because, you kind of figured out where you were with these people. And the talent level was crazy high. So, it was a little bit daunting.
Yeah.
I remember one of my mentors coming over for a visit when I was in London, and I said, God, most of the time I've been, one of the better actors in the show I'm doing, and here I don't think I am. So it was like, wow, I'm scrimmaging with the A-team, and there was a real sense of having to step up. And then some of it was really difficult because I suddenly was in a different culture, but there was still emphasis on getting the dialect, which was the received pronunciation, the RP, correct. For us Americans, that was way harder. There were a few Americans in my year.
Okay. And
the English are tuned into accents in a way we're not, because it carries so much information for them.
Yeah, definitely.
They meet somebody within the first 10 seconds, they have a sense not only where they're from regionally, but also where they are on that socioeconomic class structure that still exists.
Yeah.
So a person's accent carries a tremendous amount of information for a Brit that they can pick up right away. So they tend to be much better tuned in at hearing accents, and then as a consequence, they're better at doing them. This is why we find today there's all these British actors playing Americans on television. And
they do well. You can't tell.
They're pretty good at it. They're really good at it. But it's way harder for an American to convince. Yeah, definitely. Pull off a British accent.
Yeah.
Because here's why. I can grow up in Texas. I could sound like this, be a dumbass pig farmer. But I could sound like this and be the president of the United States. Sound like this and be a Nobel Prize-winning physicist.
Yeah.
So that accent don't tell you much about my education, where I'm from, other than, he sounds like he might be from Texas. It doesn't give you any of that other information, which for them, they hear that in their accent. Yeah, like Cockney versus, I can't think of the other, the high British basically, but. When we were in the pub, one of the guys in my year, a guy named Ian Dunn, has a fantastic ear for accents. I thought I was pretty good. I was like, wow, this guy's really amazing. Literally, people walked in, and he said, oh, he listened to him for a second. He goes, you're from this particular village. No,
Yeah.
no. And he goes, and you live on the east side of the village. He goes, how did you know? And he literally had picked these strangers out of the pub and pinpointed where they were from within about an 8-mile radius.
That's crazy.
I was like, you are frickin' Professor Higgins.
Yeah. I do hear, like, British people talk about things like that, like what you're explaining. They're like, oh, are you from, I don't know, Liverpool or whatever, and then specifically the neighborhood or the bureau or whatever. I'm like, I can barely do, like, southern, like, northwest, east, and south, in the, United States. I know if someone's, generally that's it, but I can't pin it down any further than that, really.
Yeah, it's crazy impressive, and that's partly why they are very good at accents. So it was difficult at drama school trying to get the accent right. I did this the first semester I was there, or the first term, as they call it. I wound up doing this scene from Comedians by Trevor Griffith, which is a dramatic play about stand-up comedy, but it's a play. Some of it's funny, but it's darkly funny. And I was playing this guy and trying my best to do a Mancunian accent. Well, I'd never heard a Mancunian accent in my life. So I struggled. I found a guy in the third year who was from Manchester. Had him record some stuff for me on a cassette player. That's how long ago it was. And listened to it over and over and tried to get it. And we did the showing. So one of my classmates, John Rigby, I said, what'd you think? And he goes, yes, I thought you did a rather good job of pulling off the age, because the guy was older than I was, obviously. And I said, yeah, how about the accent? He goes, German was an interesting choice. I was like, oh no, I messed up.
And that dry wit too that they have. Like it's like a subtle dig, even though it's not that subtle, but it's like, it's pretty like. Anywhere else they'd just be like, here they'd be like, you sucked or something, but they're like, oh, interesting that you chose this.
Yeah. I tell you, man, they can be polite and cutting.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
And one of the neat things about the time I spent there is it really did shift my sense of humor, into something more drier. I certainly, the stuff I've done since I've been back in the States has been much more British influenced than the stuff I did before. Much drier, less wetter.
Well, and while you were there, were you doing mostly dramatic stuff or mostly comedic stuff, or was there kind of a mix?
It was drama. Comedy, what got me started as a kid, but then by the time I was a young teenager, I wanted to take myself seriously as an actor. Right. And I went off to study classically in England. Right. So, I did a bunch of original plays. I did Shakespeare. I was going to say, imagine some Shakespeare in there. Yeah, which, outside of drama school was, again, hard to do as an American in England, because if they think you're American, you can't do the accent, no matter how well you can do it. As soon as they think, oh, you're an American, well, they just assume you won't be able to do it, so they'll never hear you doing it correctly. Right. And that was a mistake I made on leaving drama school. If I could go back and do it again, upon leaving drama school, if I was to stay in the UK, I would decide not to be an American actor in England, but I would be a British actor in England. I would just put it on and develop a backstory and not out myself until the project was over. That'd be cool. Because I got hired to do Shakespeare by a Canadian director. So he didn't have that attitude. So as we were touring around doing Shakespeare, I remember being in the pub one night, and I'd been playing Lucentio in Taming of the Shrew. And this guy comes in and goes, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Texas. And he goes, no, mate, where are you from? I said, well, I'm from Texas. Look, I'm just asking, where are you from? I was like, Julian, where am I from? Oh, he's from Texas. He goes, yeah, right. I'm like, where are you from, mate? And I thought, what, you're going to headbutt me? And I pulled out my driver's license that I had, and I said, see, I actually am from Texas. The accent you heard in the play was the one I was putting on. This is my actual accent. And that just didn't make sense to him. He thought... That's cool that you got to him, at least, though. No. By the time... by the end of my third year, because we worked so hard to try and get this for all the Americans and a few other people for whom who had strong accents, trying get rid of the accent and get the RP right, the Queen's English received pronunciation. That was a real challenge. And in my third year, one of the shows I did was directed by Bernard Hill. If you would probably recognize him. He was in Game of Thrones.
Oh, who was he in Game of Thrones?
Stannis' first right hand. Stannis' right hand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's Bernard Hill, and he directed me in The Seagull.
Pretty cool.
And his agent came and saw the show, and in the bar afterwards, she was shocked that I was American. She totally thought I was a Brit. So I was like, yes, I did it!
That's the bar of success.
Oh, I was so pleased. So then I felt like, hey, I can do this. But if you walk in the room and they go, oh, are you American? Then you'll never be able to do it to satisfy.
Right.
You know. So had I it to do over again, I would have pretended to be British. Because I had a lot of guys that were my classmates who went out and were getting work, and I wasn't getting much work at all. And I was like, well, why not? What would you do? And they'd be like, well, you'd go up for the same roles as me, but you're an American. So there was always the but you're an American. And then when the BBC was casting a show over there, they went to the States to hire all the leads. So that was really frustrating. And it was a show about Americans being in England during World War II. And then there was a show, they were doing a Neil Simon play at one of the big reps. And my agent was like, I'm going to get you in on this. I'm like, great. And she called up, she goes, well, they hired a soap star to be the lead, so they want other British actors to pretend to be American so that he doesn't look bad with his accent. I thought, wow, I can't seem to get a break. And that was part of what led me to leaving, coupled with at the time I was touring and would do my goals between Christmas and New Year's. And I was in the Buddy Holly story, touring around, having a great time. Kind of a rock and roll pubescent fantasy come true, able to do a rock show and have, and being in audiences of like 2,000-3,000 people. Great fun. And so I took the money and I thought, am I doing what I want to do? And I thought, yeah, I'm acting. I'm traveling around. This is great. I thought, well, what would you do if you could really do what you wanted to do? If I could do anything, I'd probably be in movies. I thought, I'm in the wrong place.
Yeah. So the stage wasn't necessarily your focus at that point.
I realized some little voice inside thought, I'd like to work in film. Mm-hmm. And so I moved out to L.A. on a reconnaissance holiday, and I thought, well, I like it here. I'll stay. And when I moved here, that's when I kind of thought, I used to do comedy as a kid, and I haven't done that in a long time. So I started doing some improv, and that led me into working with a group of people doing sketch. Mm-hmm. So consequently, I'm an actor who can do comedy. I can do dramatic stuff. Mm-hmm. I'd like to think I have range, but
sure. Well, I looked at like your reel and stuff like that. I mean, from that, what I can gather, yeah, you definitely do. And you have the classical training there, and then you did sketch comedy in L.A. It's like they're kind of polar opposites in some regards. Yeah. But also similar in other ways. But I mean, you're performing for a live audience and all this stuff, but generally it's seen as pretty different stuff.
Yeah. Oftentimes, if people think you're funny, it's easier to go from being a comic actor to being a dramatic actor than being a dramatic actor going to doing comedy. Right. Because, having that timing and the sense of pitching the tone right is sometimes more difficult for dramatic actors. Yeah. But no.
Well, you look at there's so many like great examples of comedic actors doing great dramatic roles. Like, Robin Williams is great at that. And, even like Adam Sandler, his best movies are like his dramas, I think, in my opinion. Funny People I thought was pretty good, and Punch Drunk Love and stuff like that. So like there's people that are known for their comedic persona, but they take that kind of energy and can do really well with dramatic acting.
Yeah. Where sometimes people who are known for drama, if they try their hand at comedy, it doesn't always work.
I can't think of an example, but that's probably why I can't think of an example, because it doesn't necessarily work as well the other way around.
Yeah, and there certainly is There certainly is a myth around that people buy into, and I think there's some truth to it. You know,
Yeah.
if I could pick, you know, I would do both.
Yeah.
Because I really enjoy, you know, sinking my teeth into something that's dramatic, and I also enjoy being silly. Now, when I was in the UK, I actually had an opportunity to play Hamlet, and wound up getting to play Hamlet at Kenilworth Castle, which was an amazing
cool
experience. And
Yeah.
one of the things that was so cool about Hamlet is how funny it is. Everybody puts on their serious dramatic hat, and they kind of iron out some of what's funny in the play. But Shakespeare knew that, hey, if your play is going to be that, pardon my French, fucking heavy, you got to have some levity in there to keep people from like wanting to open their wrists in the front row. You know?
Yeah, exactly. So, Shakespeare was really good at that.
Yeah, so I mean, if you go back and look at Hamlet, some of it is incredibly funny. I was amazed how funny Hamlet is. Because you say that and people are like, huh? But it really is. But what happens is if you play the comedy, then by contrast, the drama is more dramatic. Because if you get people laughing and in the next minute it's like, bam, you hit them in the solar plexus.
Yeah.
That's an emotional punch, and that's really strong.
Yeah.
And people kind of do this thing like, you know, if you're playing a priest, they get this sort of, oh, I'm being very holy, and the performance kind of flattens out because you're not being a human. You're playing this idea of a priest as opposed to I'm a human being, and, you know, he happens to wear a collar.
Right.
You know, and you know, as we all know, priests are any man of the cloth.
Right.
Very,
yeah.
Very
Definitely.
full of foibles.
Yeah.
You know,
well, so you moved out to LA. You were doing sketch, and what was the path from there? Because what were you thinking? What was the plan at that point?
Oh, well, you know, like any actor, the plan is, you know, I hope I'll get something that takes off and you know, land it big.
Yeah.
Now, as an actor, it's an interesting thing because for the time I've been out here, you know, I've pretty much paid the bills as an actor, and that puts me in a very small percentage of SAG actors, much less just actors who earn their living doing what they do, you know, and so I'm very blessed in that respect, and am aware of how lucky I am, and yet I haven't had the career I dreamt of when I was a kid. I think by this point I would have accepted my Oscar.
Right.
You know, so I think part of what's an interesting thing as we grow older and either experience those things we thought we would or don't is coming to terms with that. Coming to terms, if you have ambition, coming to terms with where you are in your life if you don't think that's worked out. And an interesting thing that's been going on for me lately is just this idea that, well, if I haven't made it at this point in my career, the chances are small, which is just an idea.
Right. But
what's interesting as well is that all of life is an idea, really, because we live in our thinking. And if you get that idea that you live in the experience of your thinking, not in the world, you live in the experience of your thinking, well, then you're in control of your thinking. So who are you to limit what might happen?
Right.
You know, so that then things open up again and become possible in a way that you're not limiting life in sort of like, well, at this point, life has to be like this. So moving out here, I like I say, I've done television, I've done tons of commercials, and that's been kind of my bread and butter. And part of it's by being, I guess, a good actor, but being goofy. Did a lot of sketch, and you know, we've gotten close to having some things that could have taken off and didn't quite. So I feel like I'm kind of still in the trenches, battling away. You know, nobody is. I'm not like a huge household name. And at the same time, I'm really blessed because I get to do what I love, and it pays the bills. And you know, I own a house, and I have 2 fantastic kids and an amazing wife. My personal life really couldn't be much better, aside from having a lot more money. So we can do more, you know, do more stuff. But
well, it sounds like you're doing the job, and you're like you said, you're in the trenches. You're working. Like that's the main thing here is that you're working, which is like when you got your head down like that, you can maybe not have as much ambition or whatever, but in some respect you're working towards something greater, I guess, or higher up or whatever. But it just sounds like a great existence to be working, period, doing what you want to do,
Yeah, and I've also come to realize that my thinking has been probably my biggest stumbling block.
Sure.
Because when I have had opportunities that, were for big projects, as I thought them, I'd get a little nervous and I wouldn't be at my best, wouldn't be free,
mm-hmm.
wouldn't be loose. And that was just my thought going into the room. And a good thing that's going on for me now is it's sort of like, it's going to work or it's not.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more detachment, which goes back to that paradox.
Yeah.
You have to want it enough to go for it, but be detached enough from the outcome to allow it to happen or not in order to be free in the moment.
Yeah.
Which is what we love. We love to watch actors who are free.
Yeah.
Doing something that is truthful, be it funny or dramatic, but that they're accessing something that is free and spontaneous in that moment. So it's wonderful in the fact that it's such a paradox.
Yeah. And I've been learning that paradox myself, even over the past year or so. But
yeah, it's like, if you go into a store and you want to buy a shirt,
mm-hmm.
the salesperson comes up and they're too pushy. You find yourself suddenly going, no, I'm just going to look.
Yeah.
Thanks. No,
right.
Thanks.
Right.
Because
it's a great analogy.
That energy of trying to force a sale on you makes you back off.
Yeah.
And so it's true in job interviews and
yeah.
Actors. Somebody asked me a while back, they said, "What's your job?" I said, "My job is to audition. Every now and again I get to act, to do a job.
Yeah.
My regular job is driving around LA auditioning."
Mm-hmm.
So it would be like if you had a regular job, if you were a banker, but your job every day was to go interview to get a banking job. And once every few months, you got to be a banker for a day.
Yeah.
And, the next day you're back to interviewing for a job.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird, but
that's the life of a freelancer as well, which is something that I've been working on myself.
Very much. And that's my other thing, is I still do photography.
Yeah.
I do video. Matter of fact, I had a great meeting yesterday with a really cool musician named Katie Rose, and
mm-hmm.
I'm going to be directing her music video. And
awesome.
Doing a take on Ophelia with this song she has. So
that's awesome.
I'm really excited about that, and it ties back to photography and visual imagery, which is something I've always been interested in.
Yeah.
And what I love about that is I constantly stay creatively engaged.
Right. It seems like you have a variety of outlets to do this creative stuff of any kind.
That's one of the things as well I think is really good for me personally, is I stay creatively engaged in different ways,
mm-hmm.
so that when opportunities do come, it's less important.
Yeah.
I've got other things.
That definitely helps. Yeah.
Keeping me
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I write and I do this and I do other stuff, but when one thing is not working out so well, I feel like I'm doing really well in another thing, and then it kind of balances out and keeps you from driving down into despair, basically.
Yeah. And I'm super excited about a new endeavor as well. Is an expansion of the photography and video I've been doing, as I'm kind of joining forces with some great creative people like Adam Juno, who's a graphic design artist and a
mm-hmm.
web designer,
mm-hmm.
and some other folks who have marketing skills, and creating basically an expansion of the photography, which is called Beeler Creative, and it's going to be this creative agency to help people promote their businesses. So I love the notion of having started several businesses myself,
mm-hmm.
to get them up and running and be able to help people clarify the message and take it out to the world through various channels, through social media, through leveraging the power of the internet. It's a neat thing, because what I'm doing is taking that creativity and figuring out, well, what's the puzzle of what you want to do? What's your brand? What's the track you're trying to travel down? Who's your audience? And deciphering those things, and then coming up with creative ideas to push it along is it's a great challenge. It's a great puzzle.
Yeah,
And
it is a big challenge now too, because with the internet, there's a million things out there of any sort. Just it's saturated in one regard, and you got to figure out a way to rise above the rest of it.
Yeah, and I think, and it's interesting because this all ties into the same thing again. It all goes back to the nature of doing creative endeavors as a freelancer and or as an artist. Mm-hmm. I think it comes back to helping people find what is authentic about what they want to communicate and kind of what's important to them in the world, and helping that message travel along that path. Because there does seem to be something that when you are congruent with who you are and what's important to you, then life seems to open up doors where there were once walls.
Yeah.
Because I've had it happen to me again and again.
Yeah.
And it's
those are some wise words.
But who said that?
I don't know.
Did I say that? Good Lord. We should be recording this. That was pretty good. So yeah, I got stuff where it's like literally today I had a meeting. We had a meeting with Adam, the designer, about launching Beeler Creative, which is coming up on the 28th of April. We're going to launch our new website and
awesome.
Push this out to the world. And talking about sort of strategy towards that.
Yeah.
Well as ongoing strategy beyond that launch. Then looking over that pitch for the comedy show. Because as soon as John signs off on that, we want to push it out tonight to the director and see if we can't get that thing going. And then tomorrow I've got a t-ball game with my son, followed by filming an interview. And then on Sunday I'm shooting with a photographer I know a commercial. So,
wow.
But I'm actually filming as opposed to being on camera.
Oh, in it,
behind the camera.
Got it.
There's just a lot of stuff going on that's all cool and really interesting and engaging.
Yeah, it's satisfying to have, you look at your week or whatever, and it might be a little overwhelming at first of I got this, but you're like, this is all stuff I want to do, and at the end of the day, you feel fulfilled, creatively satisfied.
Yeah.
So it's a good feeling to be busy, basically.
Yeah.
With different stuff like that. But
yeah, I certainly there's no moss on my Rolling Stone.
Yeah, you haven't gotten to a point of complacence yet.
No, and I kind of hope not.
Yeah, you hope you never get there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because some people do get there with whether it be because of money or just other reasons, or lack of money, but.
Yeah, and money's always tough, and it's interesting when people move to LA and they want to, especially if they want to act. I always say the hardest thing to figure out is how to keep the wolf from the door while you're pursuing your dreams.
Yeah,
because you'll still have rent, you'll still have to pay for your car and gas.
Yeah,
upkeep and all that stuff. Even if you live a very lean existence, there's still expenses. So how do you satisfy those expenses while still going for what brought you here in the first place? And that's tricky because even, when you have peaks, and we've all seen this, pick an actor you like, and you'll see have, several years where they're on fire and everything. Yeah. They got one A-list movie coming out after another, and then roll forward several years, and you're like, God, what happened to so-and-so? And it's not a reflection of their skill necessarily.
No, definitely not.
It's just, there's waves where things go up, things go down, and it's, even those people, if they haven't planned, can find themselves, burning through whatever money they had if they have a lavish lifestyle. Yeah. And then suddenly they're in a valley where there's not much work, but their outgoings are high, and then they're scrambling. So it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting thing. A career in the arts is fascinating.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and I think we got some insight here about the way it works. So, I mean, where can people find your stuff and support whatever you're doing, and what can people look forward to?
Okay, well, we've got Beeler Creative, which is the thing I was just talking about launching, and that's BeelerCreative.com, and that's the boutique agency that's helping people elevate their message to the world. That's kind of what we're doing. Then Beeler Photography is still around, although that's being folded into Beeler Creative right now. I got Beeler.biz, which is .biz, and that's my acting website. In February, I shot a film called Aw Roach, and I acted with Casper Van Dien and Barry Bostwick, which was pretty cool. They were good guys, and David Robert Hall. And that's a kind of a spoofy horror film that's in post right now. I don't know when that's going to come out. But I was playing one of the lead roles in that, so that was a fun thing to do. Yeah. And then we got this sketch show, which I can't say much about because it's too early, and we're
totally understand.
Spaghetti against the real wall. Yeah. But I'm very excited about the potential of that. Yeah. And then I'm doing other things in between, like directing this music video. And there's a show I film and direct called The Inside Track, which is about jazz with Chris Standring. And so that's a neat thing going on a regular basis.
Yeah, it seems like you're just more things. There's more things on top of more things.
Yeah, that's kind of how it is. And it's funny because, I went through a period where I was like, should I be acting? Is this where I should be putting my time and energy? Where should I focus? And years ago, I had this idea that I called Project Renaissance, which is because I had so many interests, and it's always sort of a blessing and a curse. But that I really enjoy doing different things. Yeah. And about a year ago, I just thought, fuck it, I'm not going to change. This is who I am. Yeah. I'm going to want to do something other than just act. I'm going to want to write. I'm going to do visually creative things like photography and video or directing music videos. I'm going to want to do these things. I've got, if I turn here to the right of me, I've got a board full of a feature film that I'm developing.
Awesome.
Recently I was reading about virtual reality, and I was like, oh man, that's so.
Yeah.
I love the idea.
It's a growing thing.
You think differently about that. Just the paradigm of entering a space where you're totally surrounded by the environment. Yeah. That's exciting. Yeah. So, I might, when I find some time, travel down the road of tinkering with VR, because I think it's intriguing. So, for me, it's about, finding the thing that's going to keep us, keep my overheads met. And just things that are creatively engaging, that I enjoy doing, because I'm going to keep doing different stuff, and I just accepted that. It's like, because I used to worry, should I just do this? If I really just focus down on one thing? And I thought,
will it flourish more or whatever? Will I be more successful doing one thing than other things? But I don't know if it necessarily works like that. Because everything fuels everything.
And I just kind of went, it's part of who I am. The desire to do different things and enjoying being engaged in different ways by different things. And part of it is, had I lived in the 18th century, maybe you too, it sounds like, that would have been champion. That would have been, that would be the aspiration. Yeah. But here in the 21st century, end of the 20th, it was all about specializing.
Yeah, I think it's actually going the other way at this point, honestly. Like, it's funny you mentioned Project Renaissance, because there's been this recurring theme on the show of the guests I've had on what we talk about, that they're Renaissance people. That, like, I've had a friend of mine, Seth, who did the music and the logo for this show, is also a musician. He's also a video game developer. He's also, like, all this stuff. And, like, the comedians I've had on are writers, and they perform live, and they do TV, and, like, all this stuff. Like, it just seems like that's actually the way it's going now. Because I think all the creative endeavors fuel each other. So
I think so too, and it does seem, especially these days, when there's, if you look at the internet, there is a lot of, I call it, there's a lot of dirt you've got to move to find some diamonds.
Right.
Much less a lump of coal.
Yeah.
And your ability to be multifaceted in your skill sets is a virtue. Yeah. You have to have one or two things that you kind of go, well, this is kind of the main thrust of what I do. but you have to have a lot of other disciplines that support that. I'm sure like you've learned a lot about podcasting and recording and editing and music.
Mm-hmm.
And
I want to write some music myself actually at some point.
Yeah,
because I don't have enough to do.
I'm with you. So what about you? What's going on with you? What's next? Where can we see?
Oh, I don't know.
I'm.
This is the main, like you said, this is the thrust of it right now. I'm a journalism student, so that's what I was shooting earlier. That's why I was a little bit late. I was doing a package, but yeah, I don't know. I'm writing a screenplay right now for some reason, and doing other stuff like that. So what you're describing is totally resonating with what's going on in my life in terms of diversifying, just doing all kinds of different stuff. And if something doesn't pan out, like I'm not expecting the screenplay to get sold or anything. It's my first screenplay, but it's something that I'm working on. It's creative, getting out some creative energy, and then I don't know. We'll see how everything goes, how everything shakes out.
Yeah. I call it throwing the spaghetti against the wall.
Yeah.
See what's going to stick.
That's definitely what. And that doesn't mean that I'm not I'm pretty dedicated to everything I'm doing, but at the same time, as I mentioned earlier, I'm like, okay, this could just be the thing if everything else falls off. But yeah, it's going well.
Yeah, I also think there's kind of a great merit in trying to think how to say this without it sounding kind of quasi-religious, but I think that there is a creative energy, what you might call big mind, or
sure,
I guess some people would call it God, a flow. I don't know.
Yeah,
I do think that there is something that is a flow of life, that's that animating force of life itself, much less the wellspring from which creative thoughts come when they just show up out of nowhere. And the more you can tune into the flow of that, and kind of take where you want to go, but also align it with that, the easier life becomes. And I
agree with that.
I do think that there's tremendous power in being really honest with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
About what you want to do and about what's important to you, and about being cool with that. What that is. If you want to write a screenplay, that's what I want to do right now.
Yeah. And it's an interesting process, but
and I think that people want us to pick one thing and stick with it because it's easier to think of you. Well, Tristan does this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well,
you'll see I don't know if you're familiar with Donald Glover. He's a comedian, but he was on Community. He played Troy on Community, and he was an actor primarily. He did some sketch on YouTube, and then he started to rap. And everyone's like, "What is he doing rapping?" Like it was like some affront to their person that he also is pretty talented at this other thing. And at this point, he's actually more of a rapper than an actor than anything. But he's gained legitimacy in that way. But it's still initially people are like, yeah, they have you pegged, and they don't like it when people break out of that mold they have for you.
Yeah. I think Walt Whitman said that. He said, "Oh, do I contradict myself? Very well. Very well, then I contradict myself. I contain multitudes."
Yeah.
And there's something about that, the potential of who we are is vast, and who are we to limit that?
Well, this has been a great conversation. We got pretty
deep,
philosophical. Yeah, and that's what I like. This show will range from being I had a guest on. We talked about sandwiches for 5 minutes, or it'll range with this, and I love it all. It's great. It's just normal conversation, good conversation.
Yeah.
Thanks for talking, David. It was a pleasure.
Well, thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it. I applaud you as you go forward and explore different things that you might do, and I look forward to following you and finding out more.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man.
I think that I'm growing the podcast. That's the main thing right now. So hopefully that'll make it that'll be what everyone has me pegged as, and then I can break out of that. So. And
then with a little luck, you'll see me on this sketch show.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. Let me know how that.
I'll keep you posted. If that's move forward, I'll reach out to you for some kind of follow up.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, and
I'd love
I
to
shot
do
a commercial. Let's see, I'm trying to think of, because it's not aired yet, and I signed an NDA, so I'm not supposed to say too much. But a former SNL actor is in this commercial with me.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, and that was kind of fun. He was a super good guy. He's got.
Well, I imagine you're a huge SNL fan.
I like SNL. Yeah.
Okay, because just the sketch origins, but
yeah, it's amazing that has become such a legacy.
Yeah.
Because I showing my age now, but I remember when it first aired. As a kid and watching that and being able to stay up late and be like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And
I had a writer for SNL on a few episodes ago, and it's like he was
that was great.
Yeah, and he just the legacy of it is kind of incredible at this point. I mean, it's just what is it, 41 years now? Cause it was last season or something. But.
Yeah, and like no pressure if you're a new writer. You're like, hey, you're the guy who messed it up.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So if this show goes forward, it'll be no pressure there.
Yeah, exactly. There's pressure because it is like a legacy thing, but at the same time, it's like, what am I going to do that's going to take down SNL? Yeah, probably nothing. So
yeah.
Great talk, huh? Got real deep. Very good conversation. He's in the trenches. He's doing the work. Admire that. Impressive. So, what's going on next week? Next week I have Richard Vreeland on the show, also known as Disaster Piece, or he is associated with Disaster Piece, the entity. Richard is a composer. He's done a lot of video games like Fez, most recently Hyper Light Drifter, and he's also he's the composer for It Follows, which is a fantastic movie, and the music is definitely a big part of that. And I don't know, Richard was a really nice guy. We had a great conversation. I learned a lot about what it's like to score music for video games and movies, because I think people have like if they even have an idea at all, they think of it a certain way, and Richard speaks to that. So I'm excited for that episode next week. In the meantime, you can keep up with the podcast in all the places. Facebook, Butterfly Effect Podcast, YouTube, Butterfly Effect Podcast there as well, where I am now posting the breakouts of an episode a week later. So an episode goes up on Tuesday, 6 days later, that Monday, the first breakout goes up, and then it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Little slices, little highlights. So for example, yesterday I posted one with my conversation with Steve, titled Growing Up in Oxnard, California. It's just like a 9 minute bit about what it was like for him to grow up in Oxnard, California. And so I'm going to be doing these little slices after the fact, a week after, just to give the full episode room to breathe and hopefully flourish, because I want people to listen to the whole thing, of course. But you can share those things on YouTube there, and that'll help get the word out, I think. It's a little more accessible. People can pop in and listen, and if they like it, they can listen to more, instead of having to sit down for an hour plus. So anyway, so that's on YouTube. Twitter, Butterfly Pod. I'm on Twitter at Edeltodd, ETTLETODD. Yeah. ETTLETODD. I'm a little sleepy right now. I'm tired, so I'm sorry. And then the email for feedback, suggestions, people you want on the show, what have you. trettleman@gmail.com. TRETTLEMAN @gmail. And yeah. Oh man, I just get these deep yawns. I don't usually yawn like that. I'm just playing it up so you can actually hear it. But you know those like deep yawns that just like bring the tears to your eyes? I'm getting those. So I'm not doing anything. I'm just a lazy dude. Anyways, yeah. Look forward to next week. Good things are in the works. Share the podcast with your friends. Alright, see you later.